Hello and welcome to the United Community Channel. My name is Jack and this is your match preview. United versus City, the derby, a big one. Regardless of where we are in the league table, regardless of the inconsistencies of both teams, it's an opportunity for United to do the double over City in the league for the first time since Solskjaer was the manager. And we've got plenty to talk about, guys. Ruben Amorim has done his press conference. He's given us updates on Menu, De Ligt, Garnacho, Mount. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the importance of the game according to Ruben Amorim as well. Of course, we will be getting into our predicted 11 and giving a score prediction. But as always, guys, get your comments, game predictions, score predictions into the comment section below. Hit the like and subscribe button and let's jump right into it. So guys, let's start off with Ruben Amorim's press conference, and he's had a lot to say. In fairness, he's obviously given updates in relation to injuries, which we'll go through, and he was asked first and foremost, and we'll discuss it here first, in relation to Kobbie Mainoo. Now we know he's been out for a good few weeks with an injury, but Ruben Amorim has given a little bit of light towards when he could be back, and it could potentially be this weekend. He says Kobbie Mainoo is returning to training, so we will see and assess him. Of course, he cannot start versus City. Now, that doesn't mean he's not available. It does look like he could potentially be available for the game on the weekend. And look, I mean, he would be a great addition back to the Manchester United squad and give us some options, obviously, within that number 10 role, potentially number 6 role. Opens up a little bit of maybe rotation that we can start looking at and giving us different options. We've missed him, it has to be said. You know, he was doing quite well in that number 10 role for a few games before he got injured. He was primarily before that played in the number 6, and he wasn't seeing out an awful lot of games. And Ruben Amorim said quite a few times that he was still learning about where to play him and how to get the best out of him. And it looked like he was finding his rhythm a little bit in that number 10 role before he got injured. But so it would be great to see him back. It really, really would. And I would like to see him being involved in the game on the weekend. That number 10 position has been... there's been an awful lack of creativity outside of Bruno Fernandes there. We've seen obviously Garnacho playing there, no real end product. Xerxes struggling in the position to score or create. And yeah, we've really struggled. And I think Kobbie Mainoo would give us options and can be a lot more creative in the tight spaces that a number 10 finds himself in. So I can't wait to see him back, and I do think he'll have a big role to play between now and the end of the season, in relation to what we need to do and potentially, hopefully, try and go and win the Europa League. He's also given us updates on Matthijs de Ligt, guys. So as we know, de Ligt got an injury. Well, I won't say an injury, but he got a knock just before half-time against Nottingham Forest this week, and he finished out the game. However, he was hobbling out of the stadium after the game as well. And Amorim was giving us an update on him. He says, De Ligt has an issue, something during the Forest game, and we have to assess. So it does look like De Ligt could be a doubt for City on the weekend, and it's a big, big loss if he's not there. He's been absolutely fantastic for us over the last few games for the majority of the season, and he's shown real leadership in that back line and throughout the squad in general. Has the real air of a Manchester United captain down the line. And we know, obviously, he captained Ajax at 18 years of age. That time they got to the Champions League semi-final was a kick away under Erik ten Hag, nonetheless. And I do think he will be a massive loss going into such a big game like this. Now, we do have cover there, which is good. Obviously, we've got Maguire returned last week. He obviously come on up front, not centre-back. Yoro came back and had a really good game as well. We know Mazraoui can play in that position as well. So we do have cover there. But De Ligt, with the experience, with how he's playing, he will be a massive loss. So let's hope that he can be available in some capacity on the weekend. Now, guys, Mason Mount has been another player that has been talked about quite a lot over the last few days and weeks about maybe his future at Manchester United and where that may lay. And David Ornstein spoke yesterday saying that he is staying at Manchester United this summer. United don't have any plans to move him on. We want to get him back fit and we want to get him back playing, and that he does suit Ruben Amorim's way of playing. And we know how well he done at Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel, playing a very similar system. They won the European Cup on the back of that, and he won Player of the Season for Chelsea. So, we know Mason Mount can slot really well into Ruben Amorim's system. He's got to get consistent, he's got to stay fit, and he's got to get, put in some good performances. Now, Ruben Amorim has said, yes, he's fit enough to start, but we must manage him. Mason has trained a lot of times, getting the load in his body. Sometimes the mind is more important than the body. He is fit to play, and we will see on Sunday. Now, of course, Ruben Amorim has not given an awful lot away. He does want to keep his cards close to his chest, and he's not going to tell Pep Guardiola the starting lineup this far out. But I do think there is a big opportunity for Mason Mount to play. He's had, I think the international break came at the right time. He was on the bench for Leicester, and he had a couple of weeks then to train and get fit. And obviously he was on the bench again and he came on last Tuesday night against Nottingham Forest. So the opportunity is probably going to be there for him. Will he get the start? That remains to be seen. But it's just good to see him back. And again, we speak about that number 10 role. The likes of Mainu coming back and Mount coming back as well. All of a sudden it opens up doors and we can start rotating a little bit more. If something is not working, you can change it. So it's good to see Mason Mount back as well. Now, Garnacho has been a big talking point this week as well, guys. And, his lack of threat and, his decision making has been called into question an awful lot throughout his entire United career. But on the back of the performance on Tuesday night against Forest, it's never been questioned as much. And obviously, Ruben Amorim was asked about it in the press conference, and he says, I think Garnacho is doing the right things. Like any player in our team, he has to choose better in the last third. Bruno Fernandes is the only one scoring goals easily. Garnacho needs to improve the way he runs, the way he defends, scores and assists. He is improving. And I reiterate this fact, and I've been saying it a lot, that I do think Garnacho is improving in Ruben Amorim's system. And the final few tweaks that he needs to get to his game are his decision making and putting the ball in the net. He is getting opportunities and he is getting into good positions. And I do think when he plays on that right hand side, I think he plays much better. It stops him drifting out onto the left and going back to, restore factory settings where, he tries to cut inside in his right foot and takes a shot, and it either, nestles in the top corner maybe 2 or 3 times a season. The rest of them go up into row Z. And I think when he's on that right-hand side, he's more involved in the build-up. He's bringing defenders into the game an awful lot, the overlapping wing-backs. We've seen Dargo on that left-hand side make so many runs when Garnacho is there, and he's so frustrated when the ball doesn't come. So Garnacho does have a lot to improve on, but I have seen improvements from him in relation to Ruben Amorim's system. We mentioned when Amorim came in that Garnacho's going to have the biggest learning curve, but he is improving. He's got a long way to go, and he's got between now and the end of the season to put in some good performances, or else I think Manchester United could potentially try and move him on in the summer. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And of course, guys, Ruben Amorim has been speaking about the importance of this game. And, obviously the derby is always a huge, huge game and you want to be winning it. And Ruben Amorim says we want to win the game. We want to improve in the league. And especially we want to win games. We are going to have full focus on this game. And of course you should. You should never not go into a Manchester derby without full focus. And we've said about this Manchester United side, not just under Ruben Amorim, but over the past few seasons, we tend to, I suppose, get motivated a lot easier for the bigger games. And it's the mid to lower table teams that we tend to struggle against a bit. And I think we will have more space against the likes of Man City than we potentially did against Nottingham Forest. City like to press higher up the field, where Forest are happy to sit in and defend. We will get more space in behind. And, we did take, I suppose, control of that and advantage of that in the Etihad this season. And obviously Ahmad gets the goal to win it for us. So not only do I think we need to win this game, for the derby and moving, as high up the league table as we can, but to get momentum going into the Lyon game next week, into the Europa League. There would be nothing worse than going into that game on the back of a defeat. Heads are down. If we lose to Man City, that's 2 defeats on the trot after the international break, and you're trying to pick yourself up off the ground. However, if you go, the performance wasn't the worst in the world against Nottingham Forest. There was an awful lot of positives to take out of it, especially in the first half. And if you can get a victory in the derby at home, at Old Trafford at 4:30 on a Sunday, brilliant. Going into the Europa League then with an awful lot of positivity and so on and so forth. So look, I do think it's a huge, huge game in that sense. And I do think United will be taking it seriously. Now, guys, let's talk about City a little bit here in the build-up. And obviously, they've had a very, very poor season, you know, in relation to their high standards, it's got to be said. And are we playing them at the right time? I mean, it's hard to know, really. They've been a little bit inconsistent with performances over the last few weeks and months. And obviously, look, they had a win against Leicester last week. Everybody has beaten Leicester. They beat Bournemouth in the FA Cup before that. And, you know, but a little bit of inconsistency, you know, prior to that, drawing to Brighton, losing to Nottingham Forest. They've also had defeats to Liverpool, scraping a win against Spurs. So, look, they're not the most informed team at the moment, but they are fighting to remain in the Champions League spots. And, you know, it's very nip and tuck up there. There is probably going to be 5 places available for Champions League this season, but City are nowhere near guaranteed one of them spots. Some interesting information, of course, in relation to players available, and Erling Haaland does look like he's going to miss the remainder of the season, so he's going to be out for the game on the weekend. That is a big plus for United. However, they do have players that can hurt you. Absolutely they can. Marmoush has come in and he's done really, really well and settled in quite quick at Manchester City. But I do think that midfield battle is going to be where the game is won and lost. And I think City have an ageing midfield. Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne announced today that he's leaving City at the end of the season, you know, which is it a positive for us or a positive for City going in to the derby? I don't know if it's good timing or bad timing. That will be determined on the weekend. But I do think it's an opportunity for United at home with the inconsistent Manchester City to go out and actually do the double. And like I said, do the double over City would absolutely be fantastic this season. And there is a big opportunity to go out and get a result. Now, guys, let's get into our predicted 11, and this is the starting 11 against Nottingham Forest the other night, and there was no real surprise in terms of who started. Obviously, probably the biggest one, even though it wasn't too much of a surprise, was Hyland was left out. You know, he did score against Leicester before the international break, scored for his country during the international break, but was left on the bench, and, you know, came on and gave us, I suppose, them runs that we were missing when Xerxes plays in that false 9 kind of role. But still not an awful lot there. But in terms of what we're predicting for this game, to be honest, I don't think there's going to be a hell of a lot of changes. Now, again, look, De Ligt, we mentioned, is potentially a doubt for the game, but I don't see any other way we could, you know, change it other than De Ligt coming out and Maguire coming in. And again, we know how well Maguire plays in a back 3, and he's done fantastically well for Ruben Amorim in this system so far this season. But Mazraoui on the left, Yaro on the right. Again, I don't see any real changes there. I think both had good games against Nottingham Forest. And I do think that's going to be the back 3, of course, with Andre Onana behind him. Now, in midfield, guys, the 2 number 6s, bit of a surprise. We did expect Bruno to play in one of the number 6s last week. That's what I predicted in the Forest preview. And, you know, will we see that again? Will we see Ugarte and Casemiro? I think the emergence of Mount being available may actually mean Casemiro drops out, and I'm going to predict Bruno goes back into the 6, and I'm going to predict Mount goes up into the number 10 and starts. To be honest with you, I think it'll either be Mount or it will be Xerxes drops in and Rasmus Højlund comes in up front. And I think they're the 2 real formations and personnel setups that we will see. What would I prefer? To be honest with you, I would prefer to see Højlund start up front. We've got to have a striker up there, and I know he hasn't scored an awful lot of goals this season, but I do think he gives you them runs and he stretches the game a little bit, and he does have pace to get in behind. And if we're talking about City pushing up high to the halfway line, there is going to be space in behind, and Rasmus Højlund can use his pace to get off the shoulder of the last man, whereas Xerxes doesn't do that. Xerxes tends to drop in, playing the number 10 role, and then we don't really have any options to get in behind. Garnacho is another talking point, guys. Will Garnacho start? And to be honest with you, the exact same reason why I think he will is because of the high line that City play. And we know Garnacho has pace to get in behind as well. Wing backs, guys, no real changes there. It's going to be Dorgu and Dalot. I don't see any reason why we would change that, unless maybe De Ligt is available to play and you might move Mazraoui up for Dalot, but again, I don't really see that happening. So this is going to be my predicted lineup, guys. Onana, Mazraoui, Maguire, Yaro, Bruno, Ugarte, Dalot, Dorgu, Garnacho, Xerxes and Highland. But again, I wouldn't be surprised potentially if Xerxes dropped out and Mason Mount comes in. But let me know your predicted 11 in the comment section below, guys. Let me know what you think. Now, score predictions. I'm confident going into this game. I have to say, I think we'll win. I do. I think, we've been on a slight upward trajectory over the last few weeks. Even though we lost against Nottingham Forest, there has been improvements in how we're playing, in how players are understanding Ruben Amorim's system, tactics, setup. And City are hit and miss, to be honest with you. They're missing their main goal scorer, Erling Haaland. They've not got an awful lot of legs in midfield. I think we will beat City on the weekend. I'm going to go with a score prediction of 2-1 to Manchester United, similar to that of the Etihad and the previous game in the Premier League. But let me know your score predictions, guys. I'm confident going into this one. Let me know your score predictions in the comment section below. We will be live for the game. It won't be me. I think Chris is actually going to be doing the watch along for us on the weekend, and potentially one or two other guys as well. So again, apologies I can't make it, but my wife is away, so I'm minding the kids, and got to be a parent every now and again, don't you? So yeah, I do hope you can join us regardless, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers, hoping to get there by the end of the season. But thanks for watching. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll chat to you Sunday. Take care.